Welcome back to another episode of my Wheel of Time reread on Reading the Pattern. We'll be talking about The Eye of the World chapters 40 through 43, in which our cast of characters pretty much doubles, and Rand checks out his future mother-in-law.
This video may include spoilers for all Wheel of Time books. If you have not finished reading the series and do not want to be massively spoiled, stop here or proceed at your own risk. Finally, the original group, minus Tom, are all in Camelyn and find each other at the Queen's Blessing. With the addition of Loyal, they agree to leave Camelyn together via a waygate. Let's review the notebook of our favorite Ogier to remind ourselves what happened in these chapters. Rand has an image in his head of sitting with Logain and Moiraine, who are suddenly replaced by Ba'alzamon before he comes to.
He realizes there is blood on his head and remembers falling off the wall. He finds himself in a garden, and a richly dressed, beautiful girl, slightly younger than he, climbs out of a tree and begins tending to his wound. A boy who appears to be her older brother follows her lead. Rand attempts to escape back over the wall, but the girl Elaine insists that he stay, and her brother Gawain attempts to put him at his ease, ends up rambling on about their family.
And Rand gradually realizes that this is the daughter heir, and their mother is the queen.
Gawain insists on knowing who Rand is, and Rand tells them the truth, right before their half-brother Galad appears, and then goes to turn Rand into the guards, despite Elaine claiming him as a guest under her protection. The ranking officer, Talonvor, states his orders to bring Rand before the Queen Morghese, and Elaine insists he bring her and Gawain as well. Rand is brought before Queen Morghese, the Captain General Garth Bryn, and Elaida Sedai. Morghese dresses Elaine down for disobeying her in attempting to see Logain, and Gawain for failing to keep Elaine in check. Elaida gets in on it too by warning Elaine about how hard she'll be worked when she goes to Tar Valon. Finally, Morghese turns her attention to Rand, and Elaine comes to his defense. Morghese questions his loyalty, since she knows that the Two Rivers does not really consider itself a part of Andor. Elaida questions whether he is really from there, since his height, hair, eye, and skin color do not match the usual appearance. Then she notices he has a heron-marked sword, and everyone in the room nearly loses it. Morghese thinks he is too young to have earned it, but Garth Bryn thinks it belongs with him, while Elaida only continues questioning him, where he got it, where he is staying, and what brought him there. Elaida believes he is dangerous, and Morghese insists she speak her thoughts clearly. Elaida gives a foretelling, with the last part for Rand's ears alone. Bryn advises that it would be best to imprison Rand to be safe, and Elaida agrees. Morghese, however, accepts his oath that he means no harm and allows him to leave, escorted by Talonvor and followed by Elaine and Gawain. Elaine flirts a little before she leaves, and Gawain, when asked, admits that Rand looks like an Aielman. Rand finds himself alone outside the palace and takes off running.
Rand runs non-stop back to the Queen's Blessing and seeks out Master Gil, finding him in the library with Loyal.
He blurts out what just happened to him, and at first, Master Gil does not believe him. Once he is convinced, he tells him he and Mat will have to leave since Elaida will track him down eventually. Loyal again asks to accompany Rand, and this time he agrees. Whitecloaks show up at the inn, looking for dark friends, including a boy from the Two Rivers. Despite the children threatening him, Master Gil stands up to them, and his security and supporters run them off. News of a lady asking for Rand and Mat by name in the kitchens leads Master Gil to think it is Elaine, but Rand quickly realizes who it must be. He rushes off to find Moiraine, Lan, Nynaeve, Perrin, and Egwene. While Moiraine takes care of warding the inn against rats, Nynaeve goes to tend to Mat, followed by Rand, Perrin, and Egwene. Nynaeve is horrified at the sight of Mat, and he begins making biting comments to his friends. As soon as Moiraine and Lan enter the room, she warns the rest to get away from Mat. Once she lays a hand on him, he attempts to stab her with the ruby-hilted dagger, and Lan stops him. Rand makes excuses that Mat had taken the dagger from the treasure room in Shudder Logoth, not Mordeth, and that he didn't know until after the group had separated.
Moiraine explains that the evil of the dagger would have drawn dark friends and Shadowspawn to them. Lan has seen signs of Shadowspawn gathering outside the city.
Moiraine also explains that Mat is an intense danger to himself and to others because of the dagger, and that she will do everything she can to protect him with the power.
Rand leads a subdued group down to the library and worries about Perrin's resigned heir in particular.
When they arrive in the library, Perrin, Nynaeve, and Egwene are introduced to Loial and eagerly ask him questions while they wait. Mat reappears, followed by Moiraine and Lan, and apologizes, stating he can't remember much since Whitebridge, but he seems like his usual self. When Rand notices that Mat still has the dagger, Moiraine explains to him that until Mat can be taken to Tar Valon, the dagger cannot be safely taken from him without killing him. But she has managed to contain its effects, cleanse the taint from Mat, and slow its return. Moiraine accepts that Loial will be joining their group, and news is shared among them, including that Whitecloaks are looking for Perrin and Egwene, and Elaida is looking for Rand. When Loial appears to go off on a tangent, it comes out that the group has collectively heard from 3 separate sources that the Dark One plans to, quote, blind the eye of the world.
Rand, Mat, and Perrin are forced to admit they have been dreaming of Ba'alzamon, and Moiraine warns them to continue to deny him.
Her presence may provide some protection, and Perrin vaguely refers to his own protection from the wolves. Moiraine does not answer when Rand asks her about the false dragons Ba'alzamon has mentioned. Instead, she confirms Loial in his assertion that all 3 of them are ta'veren, and insists they must abandon their plan to head straight to Tar Valon, and instead head directly to the Blight and the Eye of the World. She wants Loial to lead them to Fal Dara through the Ways, and he is shocked, stating that if they enter the Ways, they all will die.
Rand and Moiraine both encourage Loial to explain the nature of the Ways to the group.
He explains that they were made during the Breaking, when Ogier offered shelter in the steading to male channelers who were going mad. In the steading, they were prevented from madness by being cut off from access to the true source, but eventually they could not stand it and decided to leave. But they made the Ways in gift to the Ogier in thanks, which allowed them to travel faster and more safely between the steadings. They gave the Ogier a key, which was used for growing more paths along the Ways.
Because the Ways had been made with tainted saidin, they slowly began to change, going dark, paths crumbling, and haunted by something called Machin Shin, the Black Wind, which causes madness.
No one wants to travel this way, but Moiraine convinces them of the necessity of getting the 3 ta'veren to the Eye in an attempt to thwart the Dark One, and that the Ways are the only chance they have of getting there in time. Rand agrees to go, and one by one the others do as well. They plan and pack through the night. Rand briefly tries to convince Egwene not to go, and although she seems touched by his concern, she insists on going. That night, Rand and Mat dream of Ba'alzamon, and this time he has 3 figures, one with a heron-marked sword, one a ruby-hilted dagger, and one a wolf. Mat picks up his figurine, revealing which one he is. When they awake, it is time to depart.
Let's take a look at all the fascinating details and hints of what is to come in Robert Jordan's master plan.
Gawain babbling when he meets Rand seems to be an effect of ta'veren, with him perhaps revealing some things he did not intend to. He even blurts out that Elaine should marry a man from the 2 rivers, which is a nice bit of foreshadowing for her falling for Rand. In both Gawain and Elaida's reactions to Rand's appearance, we get stronger hints that he was not born in the 2 rivers, and specifically that his biological father will turn out to be an Aiel.
Morghese believes that Rand is from the 2 rivers because she has heard its accents when she was young.
And this is a fascinating detail because it begs the question, how? Morghese certainly hasn't traveled to the 2 rivers, and hardly anyone ever leaves it, let alone getting into a situation where they could come in contact with Andoran nobility. The most likely explanation is that Morghese has actually met Tam al'Thor, the only person from the 2 rivers we know to have been traveling outside it at the right time. Because of his high rank in the Illianer army, it is plausible that he could have met Morghese before she took the throne. Elaida's foretelling is fairly straightforward. Pain and division come to Andor and the world, and Rand will be central to it. What is noteworthy is her decision to include that last part about Rand for his ears alone. It certainly influences Morghase's willingness to let him go. It seems like Elaida sought to have the opportunity to lay hands on him herself, not through her connection to the crown. In Mat's pointed ramblings when he meets his friends again, we get hints of Nynaeve falling for Lan and Egwene becoming a dreamer, when he points out that Nynaeve cannot forget she is a pretty woman, and asks Egwene what she dreams about now. In Rand's reaction to Moiraine failing to answer his question about false dragons, we get the first hint of what will become his growing distrust of Aes Sedai. She makes a mistake here in choosing to be evasive, and Rand does not fail to notice, but he does not reveal his reaction. When Moiraine learns of their dreams, she comments on several of the Forsaken, referring to Ishamael as the betrayer of hope. This name had previously been given in the prologue to Elan Morin, the man who healed Lews Therin of his madness. So this connects some dots if we're paying attention. The man in the prologue was Ishamael. The man calling himself Baalzamon in their dreams already has revealed that he was by Lews Therin's side at the time. So this is our confirmation that Baalzamon is Ishamael, not the Dark One. Though we would be very unlikely to be able to put all of this together on first read. In this latest dream, Rand actually wakes with a splinter from the dream still embedded in his hand, which vanishes when he pulls it free. An even stronger hint of the reality of these dreams and our later understanding that they take place within a dream shard in Teleron Riad.
Let's discuss the central themes and focal points that these chapters are woven around.
In these chapters, the theme seems to be a continuation of the themes of the previous chapters, where we see a clearer picture of the effects of ta'veren and the formation of a web in the pattern. We can really see those different threads coming together here with so many new characters being introduced at once. Rand's whole experience in the palace seems to be an effect of ta'veren. The fact that he accidentally makes his way in there, meets a number of characters who will become important later, and manages to get out without being thrown in jail at minimum, speaks to his needs and the demands of the pattern. The group speaks directly of these effects when they put together the different hints that they have been given about the Eye of the World. In the case of Loyal, this goes back to the Aiel War 2 decades before. And the fact that they all have arrived in Camelyn at just the right time, especially Loyal, who was their only option for traveling the ways, seems to be evidence of the pattern guiding their path. In fact, even if they had tried to leave by any other route, the shadow spawn outside the city would have likely prevented them from doing so. So they really have no choice, and the pattern is guiding their way forward.
Let's break down the characters and their defining moments in these chapters.
I want to touch on most of the new characters we're introduced to in Chapter 40, starting with Elaine. One detail that jumped out to me, because it seems like something that kind of gets dropped later on, is the fact that she is carrying around this kit which she uses to heal stray animals. That, combined with her climbing trees in her fine dress and defying her mother to see Logain, does speak to a rebelliousness that's definitely in keeping with what we will come to know from Elaine. These details also play into a bit of the down-to-earth princess trope that we get with Elaine, but it's also clear that she is not as in touch with the common folk as she would like to be or believes that she is. She has clearly taken her training to heart and moves and speaks with assurance and authority. She shows how quickly and strongly she forms opinions of people in her trust of Rand and her somewhat over-the-top hatred of Galad. In the case of Rand, she's obviously influenced by her immediate attraction and pull towards him. And she shows a fearlessness in being willing to stand up to anyone, as well as a keen instinct for knowing exactly how she can use her influence. Perhaps most importantly, she shows how much she cares about her people in her frustration that Elaida cannot or will not use the power to produce crops rather than a garden in the palace. Gawyn. You showed some promise here at the beginning. He shows kindness in his attempting to put Rand at his ease, a sense of humor even. And he seems genuinely to wish that he could have gotten to know Rand. That to me speaks to how much Gawyn needs a real friend. Despite his bond with Elaine and Galad, apparently it's not enough. And the family dynamic will come to complicate things there too. So perhaps a hint of his later failure to do his duty is given with Morghese admonishing him for not protecting Elaine as much as he should. As much as Gawain wishes to be a leader, he's also been trained to follow Elaine, and it seems like he hasn't really developed true ease in either role. Elida, we learn, likes beautiful things and order. We see this in her creation of the palace garden. Rand's impression of her is steel, with only the illusion of velvet. And indeed, she is a hard and unyielding woman, calculating too, in her decision to conceal part of her foretelling from Morghese, since it may serve her own interests and ambition for power. Morghese, we see, is someone who is determined to be fair and just in her treatment of Rand. She is strong-willed, and we are told she has a mighty temper, though it's not on display in this chapter. She has a mind of her own and is not overly influenced by advice, even from those that she trusts.
Garth Bryn, we can only surmise, has a very keen instinct and powers of observation in his assessment that the sword Rand carries truly belongs with him.
Galad, likewise, we barely see, but we are told of his unyielding insistence on following his own moral code, despite any competing considerations. He is apparently someone who sees the world in black and white. And the different opinions that Elaine and Gawain have of him should tell us that he is more complicated than he appears to be.
Add to this that he is otherwise held in universal high regard, even by competing factions in the city. And now, let's find a little levity amidst the darkness. Rand noticing how hot Morghese is giving me total Ben Stiller in Meet the Fockers vibes.
There's this little exchange between Rand and Egwene, where she cuts him off to ask innocently, "Who's Elaine?" And he tells her honestly, she is the daughter heir to the throne of Andor. She practically sputters her disbelief before walking away. And poor Rand has the classic reaction, "I have to talk to Perrin. He knows how to deal with women." I can't believe I haven't commented on this recurring theme yet, so it's about time. Thank you for your patience in waiting for this episode. This one was a bear to recap, but there's only 2 more installments left for The Eye of the World, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss those episodes. And there will be plenty more content for the Wheel of Time TV show coming up as well. See you next time when we cover chapters 44 through 47 of The Eye of the World and we travel the ways.